So now, Jay, we have kids. I think it's safe to assume at this point that at certain points we're going to hang out with other people's kids and more so our kids' friends. Now, from before you had kids to now, have your kids in any way shaped the way you actually interact with other people's kids?
I don't think so. I'm too much of an introvert. So as far unless I actually get to know the child or something like that, or the children, it's pretty much to be hi, bye, or how are you doing, stuff like that, like the small talk. Unless it's something I'm actually getting to know another child, I really kind of don't speak to them outside of hey, how you doing, or anything like that until we there's a comfortable or a comfort level, a comfort level. What about yourself?
No, the that's funny. The one thing before I had kids, I didn't care. They were just little people. They had no idea about what life was. I'm an adult. I have to deal with all these responsibilities that they don't have to worry about. They have their parents to worry about all that. So I really wouldn't give kids time of day. And that sucks to say, especially now once I had my children from the very first one, my firstborn, then I'm like, okay, these kids are number one, they're people, and they matter. More so because, as they say, they are the future. So after that, once I was able to get acclimated with how to be around the child, more so mine, then when I saw another child, I actually, number one, gave a damn about them. I would give them the time of day and I would interact with them if they were to interact with me, which is kind of cool, actually. Kids could be really cool. What I did learn right away is that kids are also very honest. So when you interact, they don't have any type of line or limit. What they have in their brain, they're gonna say because they don't know any better at that point, and that's fine. But yeah, having kids, I see kids. I'm like, okay, I know how to talk kid now. I know how to be around them, so it kind of helps out. So my child did help out in that because before that, who cares about the kids? All right, so all right, Jay. So that's how it is with our kids, with our friends' kids. But here at the same time, there's other situations that happen where families have to go outside the box with kids for whatever reason. They're not able to have their own. So there's the option of adopting. Now, I'm sure it would have to be a certain situation. Of course, we have our own kids. But if it came to a point where we wanted more kids, but we couldn't anymore, would adopting have been an option for you and the missus?
Well, I'll say this. If we didn't have kids right now and my wife really wanted kids, and for whatever reason, one of us could not do our part with producing a child, we most likely would have adopted. I know my wife really wanted to have biological kids, but we talked about this recently, and she told me she would want to adopt a baby. Me, knowing what I know now about having a baby, I wouldn't want to adopt a baby because of all the lack of sleep, and then there will be no breastfeeding, so there'll be formula with all that, and then what if you got the transition from the formula to the solid foods, and then you got to feed them all the nasty stuff until you get to the sweet stuff. So I probably want a child who's probably maybe elementary school age. I'll They're potty trained, so they're good to go. That's one less thing to worry about. But that would be a conversation I would take more her lead, because that's more of like something that she would want to do. I would have been fine with or without kids, but she's really strong. She feels really strongly about that, so I would just follow suit.
Wow.
What about yourself? Would you guys, if you guys wanted more kids or couldn't have kids, would you guys adopt?
Yeah, we had that discussion, I think, early on as well. That uh, more so now we have our two children, but they were both boys because I went in deep. So, um, wanting the maybe a daughter, just number one, what had that feeling like you, like my life is over, because in number two, I have to be the protector at all times. I have to protect my daughter from guys, maybe not so much like us, or maybe yes, but we're not going to say. But that kind of feeling. So there was a point where I thought it was okay. Now, the only thing is, my wife is very adamant about no adoption, whether it was our only option or it's an option now. Mainly because she had an ex-boyfriend. She dated him, and he was the youngest in the sense because his two older siblings, they were adopted. So her boyfriend was a miracle from God, whatever the case, because the mom was not supposed to be able to have biological kids. So my wife witnessed the two older adopted kids being very mean to him, because they would always say the line like, hey, our parents actually wanted us, you just came out of nowhere. So that kind of formed that idea in my wife's head, like, wow, that's not right, and that's not a feeling that she wanted to have for an adopted child. Now, I would always feel, hey, every family is different. I don't think every scenario is going to turn out to be the same, especially if we're the parents. I think we'll raise them in a manner that it wouldn't repeat itself that way. But as of right now, she's not for adoption just for that prime reason, which is crazy since in doing research, you find out, and maybe you know this, Jay, as well, that it's tougher to actually adopt a child, the process, than to have your own, more so with couples that have them unplanned and then put them up for adoption. In essence, you just gave that child, you gave them a tough road to be part of a family, because just how the system is in play, that it so many hoops to even put yourself in a position along with the child to actually finally go home to a family. And that's just crazy to me. And more so because we both heard the stories about kids in homes that are just waiting for families. Not the best upbringing, but the system doesn't put it well for them either to get out of there. So it's all bad, Jay, and my wife's opinion, the reality in general, is just crazy.
That's funny because my wife and I, we were watching a show. I can't remember if it was Unsung or Uncensored, one of those two shows. And there was an actor who actually was adopted, and he got abused in his household. And listening to his interview and him talking about it, you wouldn't have gotten that impression that he went through everything he went through based on how nice he is. So I'm sorry to hear that your wife, that's her interpretation, but everyone's, even though they go through something like that, they don't come out that way. So sorry that she feels that way.
Yeah, it sucks to say, but there won't be an adopted child here. There's two dogs, that's as far as we've gone, but an adopted child, no. Now, the other question I was very curious about, Jay, there are times where we are just helpless in doing anything for our children, and one of those prime ones are when our children are sick. Now, in essence, I'll start this off because having a special needs child, the question is, how do you take that? Now, going with my experience, I mean, whenever my kids have like a cold, fever, things of that nature, something common, and like, man, okay, we could only do what we need to do. We either give them medicine, let them rest, and whatnot, but it just sucks because that's all we can do. We as parents, at least good parents that we are, we would just take that pain away from them if we could, but we're not able to. Again, we are just left holding an empty hand towards our children just being sick, and it's a horrible feeling, Jay. You can't do anything more than just wait it out. And again, like I mentioned with my special needs child, at 11 weeks of recuperation in the worst conditions, just fighting for life, that's probably the worst I ever had it. But again, this is just when they're sick, when they're ill, it's not the best feeling. Now, Jay, what do you do when you're left with nothing else to do but to wait it out? How do you feel about that when that happens?
I hope it just passes very quickly because luckily my kids they haven't been that sick or that really sick often. Recently, one of my kids they I don't know if they ate something bad or what, but one day we were just out parked relaxing and then my child just started throwing up and I mean throwing up a lot and he looked awful. And I'm like, okay, what happened? Did we all eat something bad? Because no one else felt sick at all. So I don't know what happened. So I don't know what to do because he got vomit on all his clothes throughout the car in the backseat where he sits. It was like I felt helpless and I felt bad for him. I couldn't wait to get him back to the room where he can relax, sit down, take a bath, relax, and clean it up. I just felt just really bad for my eyes. Like there's no, I think, words to describe when your child gets sick. You rather be take on that sickness or that feeling for them. So yeah, I still think about it now. 'Cause it happened recently, so I was like, I'm just glad. After I think the next day he was fine completely, but I don't know if it was a bug or how he was just sitting up after he ate. I don't know, but that was terrible.
Yeah, Jay, there's no good way to describe that. It's just a feeling you don't want to have, but it's going to happen anyway. They're going to get sick, whether it's a little bit or a lot. Now, let's get away from the illness, and we're not helpless. We actually have a say in this next question, which is our kids' friends. Now, I don't know if you're at a point, Jay, where you know your child's friends very well, or you just see them here and there. But do you feel in you, whether it's present day or later on down the road when you get to know them, if you sense that there's something not great about them or something's up, how do you feel you could approach that with your children? Like, hey, I don't get a good feeling about this person, maybe this, that, and the other, just watch out. Would you actually speak up, or would you just let things happen organically?
That's tricky. Since I have a daughter and sons, I'll have to treat them kind of differently because girls, they can be more catty than boys. So, God, we did have a situation happen with one of my daughter's friends. Made me very upset, though. If I'm being quite honest, I was very upset. And my wife and I were talking to her once we got this phone call from one of the parents, and I was very, very angry at this parent by what they said to me. And my daughter, once we asked her what the situation was, what happened, and she explained it to us, and we were like, we understood it, but we didn't understand why the other kid didn't understand, or the parent, or if the parent, even if the child even told the parent 100% of what happened and not just their story to make them look good. So we didn't talk. I didn't talk to the parent after that. From my understanding, they're no longer talking, which is fine. My daughter didn't even have a problem with that. So that told me a lot more about that situation where she didn't care. But I've met some of her other friends. They seem nice. I think she found a close friend, and they happen to hang out often. And then I'm, I have a good correspondence with the mother, so their relationship is fine. Like I'm not worried about them at all. Like I never had like a concern about that relationship. My boys, I've met a couple of other friends, but usually I'll gravitate towards the parents based on how the parents are. I can see how the child is going to be. So that's kind of how I kind of base that up on. What about yourself with your boys' as friends?
No, I've actually, my wife and I just had a situation happen recently when our oldest he had summer break. Now he's been friends with these two kids primarily since grade school. I think third, maybe fourth grade. He's in seventh now, or going to be on seventh. So that's 3 years. And they hung out, whatnot. They would go to each other's houses. But this past year, it seemed, I don't know what the switch was, that they weren't hanging out as much. And then our oldest son was telling us, hey, this happened. It didn't make me feel so good. And my wife and I would just tell him, hey, just talk it out with him, see what happens. Because for the most part, my wife was cool with the kids and the parents. Me, I was neutral. I didn't have the best vibe with these two. More so because these two kids, their parents have been like grade school friends. I think the dads. So it was kind of inevitable that these kids would just end up being friends, and they were, and it seems they are besties. But my son, more times than not, it seemed like he's the third wheel, which is not the best feeling to have. So after a while, I let him know because I started seeing things like more so after school when I would pick him up. He would walk with his friends, but all of a sudden his friends just they weren't walking with him anymore. And then he didn't know why, neither did I. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It turns out he found out from his friends they were into other activities after school, and they didn't tell him. I guess they didn't feel the need to. Then again, I'm starting to get downhill with these kids, more so because I started from neutral. And when school ended, usually one of the kids has a party at the end of the year. My son has always been a part of it, except this year. For some reason, he was not a part of it. And I think it's a BS excuse that he gave my son that, oh, we're not inviting that many people. But it turns out new kids made it to the party. So I'm like, no, I ain't having this anymore. Okay, I'm done with these kids. I'm done with this family. Now, granted, it's not an easy road because he still has 2 more years with these kids at the same school. So I'm just gonna try to stay away. I try to keep my mouth shut, but I always put in my son's head like, hey, there's always more kids you could be friends with, and he does have other friends. He just hung out with these two more. So that's I guess the experience that I have with that. I'm hoping that my son makes new friends or hangs out more with the friends that he already has when the year comes in. It's just I I think as parents, both you and Jay, we just always hope for the best, especially when it comes to that scenario, because we love our kids, we enjoy our kids, we feel that hey, they're an easy hang. How could you not like our kids? And when the reality sets in like that, it's sometimes I'm left speechless, and that's not easy to do for me because I just don't get it. I don't understand it. And then again, I'm not understanding of this generation neither. I know, put you somebody's put your comments down about this generation, all right? I already understand and sense it. I got it. But that's just me and that's the experience, and I did speak up. So that's just the way it went.
Was your oldest son, was he ever in virtual school or did he go to in-person school as soon as they let people back in?
No, he was in virtual school during COVID for 1 year. And he still maintained that friendship with those friends, but he didn't make new friends. So I guess it's also a comfort thing when it comes to a situation like that with people. Like, okay, I'm not with people, so I can't really get to know them so well. But yeah, there was virtual school. It didn't help or hinder. He just stayed the same. So there was no progress, and we all went through that. So I don't knock anyone for the virtual school. We all had to do it, but that just sucks. It was a bad situation.
I think I was more worried about my kids going back from virtual school into in-person school. Mostly my daughter because she's a teenager, or she was becoming a teenager. So I was more worried about that aspect because my wife always told her, choose your friends carefully, especially the female ones, just because of how they are. So that was like always my worry when she went back to in-person school. But when I know she found a good friend, I was like, okay, at least she has one good friend. You only need one. You don't need a handful. If you got one good one, you're set. So because she talked about her a lot, so I said, I think she was having a party or something like that, and that's when okay, I had to meet the mom, or we had to meet the dad or whatever, the parents. So to let her go over her house, hang out for a little bit and stuff like that. So I like that friendship. I like that one. And then my oldest son, he was I think he invited someone to a party, and then when my wife and I were speaking to that child's mother, she was like, "Yeah, her son was very like he's very quiet. He doesn't talk a lot." So when she found out he made a friend, and I was like, "Oh, it's like I'm glad they get to have a little bond as well." So that was just nice to hear. So when they found friends, I know when you're growing up, it's like kids are can be cruel. They can be cruel. So I'm glad they found someone they can talk to, they can hang out with. So yeah.
Yeah, like I said earlier, honest is what I say. You say cruel, that's probably more realistic. But again, they don't have a filter. They don't know to have a filter. And just to touch upon what you said, that with women and women friends, I think my wife growing up, she after a while said that she preferred having friends that were boys because it was just easier. Women, for some reason, they just, who knows what it is, all right? Yes, put it on the comments, ladies. I got it. Okay, I'm still going to speak up. But whatever it is about women and girls with each other's friends, then you involve plotting, jealousy, envy, all this stuff. I mean, again, Jay, I've said it before. Two guys, if we have beef, and for people who don't know that vernacular, that means you have an issue, then you just settle it outside, throw a few blows, and most of the time you just end up being best friends anyway. So I guess boys don't have that part of the brain that allows for drama, which it's crazy because you and I enjoy watching drama on screen, but we just don't create it in real life as men. So that I understand for sure. Now, getting away from our kids for a moment, at least directly, there are other beings above us that raised us, and that's our parents. Now, here we go. Growing up, Jay, with your parents, however the dynamic was, did you ever have a situation that just stuck in your head like, I didn't understand this as a child and what the reasoning was, but now you being a parent, you having your kids, and maybe having a similar situation or not, at this point, do you go back to some scenarios growing up and realize, okay, I kind of understand why my parents did this when this happened? Do you have a more of a clear understanding now that you're a parent?
Not really. Growing up with my mom, the way she raised me, it was more like she kind of not spoke to me as an adult, but she kind of just kept it realistic with me and said, like, we're doing this for this purpose. Like, my dad's kind of the same way. He always just say, stay ready, so you have to get ready. I'm like, I'm a child. I really don't care for all that at this point. But I understand as he says it now because, like, when I speak to my kids, I'm like, hey, if you guys just do what you're supposed to do, you don't have to hear me nagging you about it every single day about it. So it's like I always tell them, okay, check under the kitchen table after you guys eat. I shouldn't have to say that every day. It's like, do you want ants and roaches in this house? I do not. I grew up that way. I don't want to see that in this house. No. So that aspect I can kind of understand because, like, I always like, I probably get this from my dad where, like, he was brought up like, okay, clean this, do this, and do this. So at one point, I lived with him, and he was like, "Okay, I want things." I'm like, "Oh Jesus!" I'm like, "I don't want to do it the way you do it." It's like, I understand why he did it. It's just like, if you just keep it clean, we want to hear anything about ants and roaches in his house. So I understand that aspect. What about yourself growing up? Did your mom say anything to you that you didn't get or you didn't care for, but now you kind of see yourself doing it with your kids?
No, there is one specific situation, and that is gaming. All right, boys, we get into gaming. I got my son into gaming after our youngest son, he was recuperating from the hospital, and we just felt okay. He was already gaming a little bit with me, but we felt that it would be a good distraction when we weren't around and visiting our youngest in the hospital. So he got into it deeply, like I did, doesn't fall far from the tree. So when that happened, he was, as time passed, he was more just about gaming and not so much hanging out outside or with his friends. My mom would always tell me, because I was the same way. I'm like, she would tell me, why don't you go outside with your friends? Why don't you go play? And in my head, I'm thinking, Mom, I have everything I need here. I have my video game. I have my snacks. Why do I want to go outside? I am good right now. But as an adult now, a parent going through the same thing, I realize it's not so good for my child just to stay home when he could be outside. I get that now. I didn't get it before. And it's tough because he doesn't go out, even when I ask him to. Sometimes tell him to. He may go out for a little bit, just say that he did it. But no, that's the situation I was caught in now. And it's just crazy because my mom was right. So I guess in essence, I'm right. But it doesn't work out that way right now. And my wife was the same way because she was against me putting him into gaming because she kind of knew what that would lead to. But again, my wife thinks she's a gamer because she plays Sims, and that's not gaming. I know, in the comments. Okay, I got it. But yeah, that was the situation I found myself in. Alright, Jay, so with that said, that concludes the show. We had a lot to say with our kids. This was a long one. I'll see if I could even have it in one show. We'll see about that. But if anything, hopefully you somebody's learn from us. That's what we're here for. We're sharing our experiences. We're not just talking to each other just because, well, I won't say because we want to, because we do enjoy talking to one another. But hey, that's what we're here for. And if anything, if you guys have topics that you'd like for us to talk about, hey, we're more than happy to find out what you guys want us to speak about. So if anything, put it in the comments, because again, we do read the comments for sure. I can't say that for all YouTubers, but we do. All right, that's what makes us genuine. And as always, if you're not on YouTube or you just want to take us audibly, we are available on Spotify, so you can listen to us there. And as always, as I say, tell friends, family, frenemies, especially the frenemies, let them know you're into a good thing. So with that said, Jay, we are here with the final words, some wisdom, whatever you can impart as we finish off this episode about kids. Anything you can just say to help out our somebodies when it comes to this topic.
When it comes to kids, the wisdom I would give for this one is actually talk to your kids. Because one thing I've always realized was my mom, every time I came home from school, she always asks, "How was your day? How was your day?" And now I understand why she was asking it, to see, just checking in to see if anything was going on that shouldn't be going on. So that's what we do now with our kids. We'll ask them how their day was. Sometimes they'll just volunteer their information. So
Yeah.
that lets me know that they still like us for one, if they want to share their information and share their life with us. So it's like, long as you guys can have that rapport, you can always know what's going on in their lives. So if something's wrong or something's off, you can tell and kind of inquire a little bit about that, and hopefully they will tell you. So that would be my wisdom when it comes to kids for this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with Jay. Talk to your kids. That's probably the number one thing that kids say when they grow up as an adult. I don't know any better because nobody talked to me about this. Now, with me adding my 2 cents, and prior to me speaking, I'm going to add an extra spot here because Jay and his lovely wife actually bestowed upon me one of the best situations, which is I am their firstborn son's godfather, which is a great feeling. And Jay has confirmed that this was a lucid confirmation, so that gives me even more of a better feeling that I am the godfather, and somehow now I am also connected in some way. So if Jay, for some reason, your middle child needs something taken care of, I somehow do have connections to have that happen, if you catch my drift. But also to add on top of that, I'll say this about the fathers, because as I was researching this topic, fathers, by a high percentage, more than 55%, don't stay, which doesn't look good for us dads that do stay. So this is what I would say to any of the men that are watching that may be fathers or are fathers or are just not there. I'll say this much. A child, yes, it is a life-changing event, but it's not a bad one, okay? Even if you're in poverty, You are part of a process for a child that is going to look to you because, especially if you have a boy does need a male figure. Take it from the person that was just raised by a single mom. They do need a male figure. And believe it or not, once you love your child and you're not selfish about yourself again, a very selfish person here, then it becomes a greater thing because now you are all about elevating yourself for your child. A little bit for yourself still. You know, you could still think about yourself, but more for your child, for your family. So it puts you on a good place and a good road. So I'm not, I don't want to say stick it out. I'm just going to say give it a chance. It is a good thing. And more so, let's sway the statistics on our side when it comes to Father's Day because Mother's Day still trumps us by, I think, 20%. Mothers are more celebrated. And rightfully so, ladies, rightfully so. I totally agree. But let's get some back for us dads, especially the ones that are good. Because Jay and I, we are good dads. We care about our kids. And we have absolutely worked hard a little bit for ourselves, but more in the sense that now we put our kids in a position, in a good position, where they can just live their life the way they choose to. And I'm not talking monetarily, I'm talking about just being able to do what they want for the rest of their lives. So, Jay, that's how I leave it as well, as two great fathers and a godfather here. So for once, I have something above you, but thank you for that. And again, thank the missus for that. But yeah, so that is the Marriage Pros. We will be here next time. So please stay tuned because it'll be another good show, at least in our opinion, and hopefully yours too. We'll see you next time. Later.
Bye.